before I start creating the servlet, I'd like to mention that a servlet is actually a Java class that that resides on the Tomcat instance. See, Tomcat acts as a container, and the Tomcat instance is going to run the Java class that we create, and this class is going to run on the VM, which is on the server where Tomcat is deployed. So it's analogous to a simple Java class that you write with the main method and execute it on your desktop. But the difference is, of course, that, as I said, it's running on a different machine where Tomcat is installed. Of course, in our case, it's on the same machine, but it could be on a different server. And the second difference is that the servlet will not have a main method. There are some default methods that get executed when you access the servlet, and Tomcat is going to execute them. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and create a servlet. So I right click on the project here, and I'll say new. You should see a servlet entry here. If you do not see that, go to the other option and go to the web folder. This is the folder in which we selected the dynamic web project. So in this folder you should see a servlet option. So click on that, press next. The project is the project where we right clicked and chose the option. Source folder is something we've selected in the previous instance. I'll give the Java package. This is the package for the class. As I said, the servlet we are creating is just another Java class. Okay, I've given the package name, and the class name I will I'll just give that as simple servlet. Note that the superclass has been auto-selected. It's taken HTTP servlet as the superclass. This is actually required when you're creating a servlet. You should have HTTP servlet as the superclass. If you're just writing a Java class, if you're not using this wizard and you're just creating a class using, using either the right-click new class or just starting on a new file without the IDE, you would have to extend this. Here Eclipse does that automatically. I'm not using an existing class, I'm creating a new one, so I'll leave this unchecked. I'll press next. Here I can enter the name of the servlet. It's taken the default as the class name that I entered in the previous screen, so I'll just leave that here as it is. You can of course change it. Description, okay, let me enter something here. I've just entered it here so that you know where it goes, but it's not really required for the servlet to work. Initialization parameters, I'm going to leave it as blank. We'll come back to this later. URL mapping is again auto-populated with the class name that we selected. What this means is that when this particular URL pattern is used to access the web application, Tomcat automatically comes to this servlet and asks this servlet to execute. So you can add as many URL patterns as you want here, so that if any of these patterns match what the user is requesting, then it'll come to the servlet. Just to show the difference, what I'll do here is I'll just call this as simple servlet path, so that you can make out the difference. It doesn't exactly have to be the same as the class name here. So I'll press next. These are the modifiers, interfaces. I'm going to leave all these as it is. I don't need a constructor. And these are the abstract methods. We're getting this from the HTTP servlet that we extended in the earlier screen. Do get and do post are selected here. I'm going to uncheck do post so that we just have do get. I don't need anything else. I'll just say finish. Okay, there you go. Our servlet is created. So the things that really mark this and make this different from just another Java class is, of course, we saw this. It extends HTTP servlet, and it implements the do get method from the HTTP servlet. We check that, in implement abstract classes screen. And then the other difference is this annotation line that you see here. You see that it has a web servlet annotation with two properties. One is the description and one is URL patterns. Description, as this is as we entered earlier, we just had some text here so that it documents what the servlet does. And URL patterns, as I explained before, it tells Tomcat that okay, when this URL is accessed by the user, come to the servlet. And when it comes to the servlet, of course, it executes only the doGet method, because the doGet is the default for any simple URL requests. There's also a doPost that we would frequently use, which I'll get back to later. But for now, just let's focus on the doGet. So I can write any code here, and then when the URL is executed with the context name of the application and the servlet name, so that it comes to this servlet, then Tomcat automatically executes the doGet method. So let me write some simple code here. I'll just say system.out .println hello from get method. Just a system.out. Actually, this will print to the Tomcat log files. Again, this system.out actually depends on how the server implements it. Tomcat, by default, when you do a system.out in any of the code that runs on Tomcat, it just takes that text and prints it to the logs. So you should see that in the console here. So now we're done. I'll save this and go to this in the package explorer. As you can see, it's created a package and it's created a simple Java class here inside this package, which is the one we've just edited. So I can right click on it and say run as, run on server. So it deploys this servlet inside the Tomcat instance, and then of course accesses this URL. So so here we go. So we have the application context, so that it's accessing this application, and then we have the servlet path, so that it accesses this servlet, and it gets this from the context which we've selected earlier, and it gets this value by looking at the annotation that we've entered here. So when you access this, Tomcat will first say, hey, it's calling this application, so let me go to this application, and then it looks at the following word. It says, hey, it's calling simple servlet path. Now, which of these servlets inside this application has the URL patterns as this simple servlet path? It sees only one servlet here, and yes, that servlet does have URL patterns as simple servlet path. So as I said, by default, it executes the doGet method, and it prints hello from get method, and hello from get method text is in the Tomcat logs. Well, this is fine, but as you can see here, the response is blank. That you're supposed to get a web page when you access this URL. It's just showed a blank web page. That is because we are not actually printing any HTML and sending it back to the client. In order to do that, what we need to do is we need to use the parameters that Tomcat passes to this doGet method. You can see here there are two parameters that are passed. One is a request and one is a response. Request is of type HTTP servlet request, and the response is of type HTTP servlet response. We'll come back to what the request does later, but let's focus on the response for now. The response is where you actually send HTML response to the client side. So what you can do is you can just take this response object, and there is something called as a print writer. So when you do a response.get writer, you will get a print writer object. So I'm going to take that into a variable here, print writer, I'll call it writer equals response.get writer. Of course, I'll have to import this print writer guy here. It's in java.io. Import that. Now I can use this writer object and call the print ln method, and I can actually print HTML here. So I can pass string here, which can actually be HTML text, and that HTML text will get rendered over here. So let me use some HTML tags here. I'll just use a h3. Hello in HTML, and of course close the tag. Save this. So when I save this, since it's already deployed, it should Tomcat should automatically detect that and reload the context. Yes, there it does it. So I don't have to deploy it again, it's automatically done it for us. So now if I refresh this, as you can see, the earlier statement executes, and then now this also executes, and it actually renders the HTML rather than just print the text, because you can see the text has been printed in bold H3.